Tonight's presentation is 125 years of the Shrewsbury Historical Society, 1898 to 2023. Kristine Gustafson is going to do the first slides, and I'm going to finish off with the last ones. Thank you.
Well, thank you all very much for coming to our party tonight. We have a wonderful cake that will be served at the conclusion of the party. It's really a wonderful accomplishment for an organization to celebrate 125 years. And back in 1898, I don't know if those founding members had the foresight to realize we would still be here. I think they were hoping we would still be here in 2023. But I think you'll see through this program that their excellent foundation and their work and their planning enabled this to happen and has enabled us to thrive as an organization. What we'll be talking about tonight is how over the last 125 years, we've had a wonderful collection of Shrewsbury artifacts. You can learn how the collection has grown and how the society started and how we continue to preserve artifacts and curate these items to share with the public and serve our community through outreach in various different methods. I thought I would start with a little bit about our logo. Many of you have seen this on a stationery in the past. You might have seen this image. It's the stagecoach with the year and the Shrewsbury Historical Society, Shrewsbury, Mass. You can see that it bears resemblance to the stagecoach from Elizabeth Ward's book, Old Times in Shrewsbury in 1892. That's the clipping from inside the book. And it's very similar with the stage with the mile marker going through town. It was developed into that logo that's been around for quite a few years. But notice the date, 1892, because that's about the time when these people in this community started thinking about maybe doing something to preserve Shrewsbury's history. So by 1898, they've read Elizabeth Ward's book. They've thought about it. They went through, the celebration of the 100 years of our country being in existence. The time was right for them to start a great historical group, which is what they did. Elizabeth Ward has this great passage in her book. I could use it to also conclude this program with, but I thought it would be sort of a unifying theme that comes throughout the program. This is the first few paragraphs of her book. There are moments in history which shine out brightly through the centuries. And to us who are looking back into the dimness of the past, to catch every ray of light that can show us more of the lives of those who came before us, they are full of the most intense interest. Events would seem trivial to those who were the actors, even as the daily happenings of our lives seem to us, as surrounded with an interest that increases as time passes. And we gather every fragment of a story pertaining to the home life of those who a century ago moved about among these familiar scenes, and linking them together, find how our forefathers lived. I just thought that really summed up what the society was about and really what our program and our mission is about too. So the way this program is organized, no, I'm not going to go year by year, page by page through the original sources. It will be on a shorter side, this program, so we can just talk with you and share what we've learned. But we broke it up into two sections. The first 75 years, from 1898 to 1973, and then the past 50 years, from 1973 until 2023. And the first 75 years is going to be based on the publication by Alden Stone that he wrote about the first 75 years of the Shrewsbury Historical Society. So some of those references will be from his work, and some will be from transcriptions that Linda also did from the original books. But basically, there are five 5 major themes that come out through both the first 75 years and then the last 50 years. We have the mission of the society, our bylaws, and they have changed over time, membership, program, and community outreach. So those are really the only topics that we're discussing, and I apologize in advance if I've left something very important out or didn't mention a specific event, but it's just an overview, a little snapshot of some of those things. This is the original source of the information that Alden Stone used for his report about the first 75 years of the society. We have 3 volumes of a very fragile leather-bound book, and inside it's entitled Records of the Shrewsbury Historical Society. It tells about meetings, the original preamble, the bylaws, membership, meetings, and membership lists. So by looking through those handwritten volumes, we can find out a lot about the past. Believe it or not, if you're familiar with the mission of the Shrewsbury Historical Society, this is how it originally started out in these handwritten documents. The association shall be known as the Shrewsbury Historical Society. The purpose shall be to keep alive and increase interest in the early history of the town of Shrewsbury and its people, to preserve in enduring form items of special value in local history and traditions and incidents of special interest, to gather and preserve relics and curiosities, and to encourage general public interest in the work here outlined. That was from 1898, and it's so much in line with what we still follow today as our mission. The society first started with 2 planning sessions in 1897. They gathered together H.A. Maynard, G.E. Stone, at George Stone's house, and they, at that first meeting, appointed a committee to be organized. Okay? You all have work. Go home, do this, come back at our next meeting ready to report. Well, they did. They wrote bylaws, they wrote their mission statement. They came back and they reported everything, and they were all carefully considered and adopted. So in the course of 2 months, the society had its beginning. These 2 leaders, H.A. Maynard and George Stone, were very competent, very effective leaders, and they knew the direction they wanted to head with this. So at the time, as a new group, they had a different set of bylaws than we have today. They said there are 2 kinds of members: resident members who live in Shrewsbury, but corresponding members who could live anyplace else. If you were a resident living in Shrewsbury, you paid 50 cents for an entrance fee. That was your fee. And 50 cents dues at each annual meeting. And they capped the membership at 50 people. Right away, they had to raise the number to 100, and they exceeded that. They had well over 125 members within a matter of just a few months. But at that time, to join, your name was submitted, it was voted on and approved, and then you were officially extended membership. So that was a little bit different than what we have as our procedures today. By June 1902, they decided that if they were going to collect all of these items of value, they needed to be officially incorporated by the state in order to accept these items. Because remember, there was no existing Shrewsbury History Museum, there was no collection of artifacts, there was no one place as an archive. It didn't exist. So for them to feel that they could accept from members, they wanted to make sure they had everything in place. And here's the name of some of the members. They're very familiar to you. I just picked a few out of the list. Romeo and Abby Allen, many people from the Harlow family, the Ward family, Emma Stone, who is George Stone's wife, the Wheelock family, Sarah Cogswell, a local teacher, Samuel Ward, Edward Sumner, C.O. Green. So you can see the generations that follow kept up their passion for history too with their membership and joining the group. Also, the members of the Brigham family were members too. So the meetings were planned one whole month in advance. They'd all get together, they'd have their program, they'd say, okay, who would like to do something next month? And then when people came forward, then they would send a postcard in the mail and announce what the next program would be and where it would be held. Because remember, there was no one place that was a home for the society. Almost all of the earlier meetings had music, whether it was singing or instrumental pieces. There was always a musical component. Most often there was cake, ice cream, and coffee. And they had all different speakers coming in, as well as some of their own local speakers. Believe it or not, some of these meetings started pretty late at night, at 7:45. Some of them started at 8:30. They were burning the midnight oil for sure, but that might have been related to completing chores that they might have had to have done, or work obligations after shops were closed and so forth. So it's recorded in the minutes that we were extended the courtesy by the Shrewsbury Public Library starting in 1903 of being able to meet in their upstairs meeting room, which was a really wonderful opportunity because now there was a space that could accommodate a large number of people. They had the downstairs reading room where sometimes members of their executive board would meet. And actually, Asenath Eaton, who was at the library at the time, was one of the founding members of the society too. But more importantly, they had the upstairs meeting room at the library. I've looked at this picture a million times, and finally it hit me what was really super special about it. I'm looking around that picture, and I'm realizing that's the start of our museum collection. Look at the display cases. Look at the clock on the wall. Look at the maps on the wall. Look at the fire horn. Look at the paintings. Look at everything you think that's the articles of the incorporation on the far wall. If you keep moving around the room, you'll see the painting of the Wheelock House by Mabel Dickinson Pond. So, and the society actually purchased these cases so that if people had something to donate, they could bring it to the meeting, it could be accepted, and they would put it right into the display cases and let everyone know what had been contributed to the society's archives. This picture shows a little bit more of a close-up of some of those items. And you can see in the middle picture there's part of a piano there because that was for music, and any group using that hall would be able to have the privilege of renting the piano for the evening. But the society was responsible for getting that piano up there so they would be able to have music as part of their programs. But we met in other places too. We met in the vestry of the Congregational Church. We met at the town hall at the time. We met in the central hall, that's the upstairs of the 1830 brick school. We met at Center School, which was the high school, and we even met at the Methodist Church. So they had a lot of different venues in addition to the library. Sometimes they met at private homes. They met at the Artemis Ward House, they met at the Sumner House, the Maynard House, and George Stone's house. So they also, and sometimes with as many as 75 people attending the meetings in somebody's private home. They have the attendance there, and they were all pretty excited. But they had certain programs for each evening, and they all had a historical theme, something that they wanted to learn about. And at the time, they had their members present also. So you can see programs by Dr. F.W. Brigham, programs by H.A. Maynard, programs by George E. Stone, all related to the history of Shrewsbury, all based on their research. And many of these programs we still have in our collection. They were printed, sometimes by hand, bound together, and then submitted, so we can go up into our archives and find many of these reports. They also had another program called a cemetery stroll in 1920, and I love this description in the minutes. On Saturday, June 26, about 25 members of the Worcester Historical Society came to Shrewsbury on their outing trip. They were met by members of the Historical Society, conducted to the Ward Monument. Romeo Allen spoke briefly about Artemus Ward. Frederick Thayer gave a sketch on the life of Joseph Sumner. They had cigars and punch. All enjoyed seeing the furnishings used by Edward Sumner's ancestors. Next, our historical rooms were visited, and this is meeting at the library. Then they went down to the Ward House. Florence Ward entertained them as their hostess. Reverend Thayer gave a sketch of the life of Artemus Ward. The remainder of the time spent studying the old mansion and its furnishings, and those who wished closed the day with a basket lunch in Dean Park. So they had quite the outing to Shrewsbury. Another outing was to Lexington and Concord and the Old North Bridge. They had more than 100 people go on this particular outing. It took probably more than a year in the planning sessions, and you can read about it in the minutes, back and forth. Well, how are we going to get there? What are we going to do? How are we going to get back home? But they also liked to do things that were really very different. We talked about the Thief Detecting Society at a meeting earlier this fall, and you know that they eventually merged with the Historical Society. That was in 1927. And those people, they donated a substantial sum. It was over $500. And then some of the members there that we recognize, they never had to pay dues anymore. They became lifetime members, including Jefferson Dean, Romeo Allen, Herbert A. Cook, Henry Stone, Herbert A. Maynard. So many of the leadership folks from this society were also part of the Thief Detecting Society. It made sense that they consolidated and merged together. So they had a lot of community outreach at the time. And believe it or not, some of these things are still the same things we're doing today. And they would have many meetings recording discussions and debates and procedures and costs and details. One of the first ones they did as an outreach project was installing the marker outside of Dean Park for the post road. We think about these things as always being there. The original society is who put them there. Another very important outreach to them immediately was to acquire a boulder and put it as a marker for Levi Pease at Mountain View Cemetery. He had no marker to designate his gravesite, and it's opposite Artemus Ward. So they had a bronze plaque installed. They all had to vote and decide on what they wanted the marker to say. And these are the original plaques. And you can see it's presented by the Historical Society in 1900. It was very important to them that Levi Pease was recognized for his contributions. A next big outreach was installing a Minuteman tablet. It was installed in front of the town hall. We know it, and you can see it in the picture at the top right, as in front of the town hall, but we now know that that's been moved to the common near the Civil War Monument. But they had a full dedication, a day of oration and speeches, and the whole community gathered there. They had to select the boulder that they wanted from someone's field and get it there and have the plaques made and all. They did a fine job. Another plaque is the Washington inaugural marker for the highway. And that was installed in front of the library in 1923. The town would not fund it. The Historical Society thought it was important enough to do it and did it on their own. When this was dedicated, there were 500 people at the dedication ceremony. Another big event for community outreach was the 200th anniversary of our town. And here you can see their float. and the float won prizes and garnered applause, and it was a big event at the time, celebrating the 200th. Now, of course, we know in the future we'll be celebrating the 300th anniversary of our town. So now the archives are starting to build up. People are starting to think, oh, there's a place where I can bring my treasures. I can share them. I know they'll be taken care of. Let's start to make a museum. Let's start to make a collection so that everybody knows about what a great place Shrewsbury is. So here's, for example, one of the earliest donations, the Shrewsbury Band of Hope banner, which we had out earlier this year. The Brigham collection. Brigham's grandchildren donated a significant collection to the society, including medical kits, mortar and pestle, the desk, portraits, pen and ink stand. It's a very comprehensive collection. It extends to even having at the bottom left, you can see record books that he had of his medical records at the time. And you can see the donation tags written there, handwritten, and the portraits. And because of that, we do have quite a significant amount of information about the Doctors Brigham. And of course, you know that he was, the Brigham family was members too. But here's something really interesting that was made as a donation that I had never seen before or known about. But there were canes that were used by both Doctors Brighams that are in our collection. And Linda can show you some of these things afterwards because she's got some of them up here on display. But one of them is, I love the one that has the two hands that are clasped, and that swirl image is the top of that. And they also has one that was made by Silas Allen with a graduated measure and a steel arm and a miniature level. So it was very clever, very creative, and we have that collection of canes that were probably used by both of the Doctors Brigham. Some of the other early artifacts, we promised we'd share with you some of the early artifacts. An Indian stone pestle donated by E.E. Wheelock, although we are not quite sure, which is why it's in quotation marks, of its Indian Native American origin. This is what the tag says that was identifying this artifact. Here's one that's documented as a Revolutionary War cannonball. It was from the stock of the American forces at Cambridge just before the Battle of Bunker Hill. Mr. Samuel Noyes, who was from Shrewsbury, was employed in teaming supplies to the soldiers, and on his return he found this ball in his wagon, which had been overlooked. So we do have this as one of our earliest donations. Up front on the table we have an old slate from the tavern of Colonel Joe Cushing, who was donated in 1902, and that would be hanging up in the tavern for various notes. We have the Henry Snow map from 1832, which is hanging up down here. And it was made into a reprint for the society too. So you can see the kinds of things that people were donating was a wide range of all really important information and artifacts related to the history of Shrewsbury. We also received the Allen pulpit, which is upstairs and was featured on our tour for the Congregational Church last June. And the pulpit is right there in the corner. That's the illustration of it from Elizabeth Ward's book. So here's where we're going to transition to Erik. And he's going to talk to you a little bit about the past 50 years. But take a look at the mission statement for starters. We were established in 1898. You heard the original mission statement. And now look at what we have currently. I think you might see a lot of similarities. The purpose and goal of the Shrewsbury Historical Society shall be to keep alive and increase interest in the history of the town of Shrewsbury, to collect and preserve items of special value, traditions and curiosities, to encourage general public interest in the society's work, and to maintain such personal properties and real estate that may come under the control of the society. Sounds good, right? We're all there. We're all on the same page with that. I can be here to advance
Yeah,
this.
sure. Bylaws and dues today. All are welcome to become members. No residency requirement for voting members. No election or voting procedures for new members. No limit to the number of members at any given time. Dues $10. Meeting places today. The Shrewsbury Historical Society and the Town History Museum. The 1830 Brick School. The Congregational Church. The Sumner House. The Shrewsbury Public Library. The Artemis Ward House. And the Shrewsbury High School. The 1830 Brick Schoolhouse facts. Built in 1830, cost was $330. Architecture was Greek Revival. Construction red brick. Location Church Road near Town Common. 1830 Brick Schoolhouse, historic significance. You can see the National Register of Historic Places. You can see the brick. We put it on the side of the building. The 1830 Brick Schoolhouse, school days, served as a schoolhouse in District 1 for a century. You can see on the left side they have the new addition. Then on the right side it's a little painted around 1900. Okay, now the 1830 Brick Schoolhouse changes up until 1990. Red brick with an L at the left, L removed, front porch, staircase, date added, painted white. The 1830 Brick Schoolhouse, currently home of the Shrewsbury Historical Society, established in 1898, Town History Museum, monthly meetings open to all, research archives, special exhibits, displays, Spirit of Shrewsbury, Yuletide Market, school and community groups here. Renovations of Shrewsbury Historical Society, establishing the museum, 1990s. The list on the far left is is a statement of people who donated money for the new town historical museum to come up. Improvements by the Shrewsbury Historical Society. You can see in the upper far left picture the little railings on the schoolhouse, and then the new Shrewsbury sign. Then you can see in the middle picture the aerial vault that they're repairing the roof. And then on the far side, they're working on the new school ramp, you can see. And then on the left side, they're repairing the chimney. And then about 3 or 4 years ago, we had new windows installed, and then we had the roof done. We've also had the upstairs was done over improvements, and we had a new oil burner put in. We had a new stair lift also. And here you can, the Shrewsbury Historical Society programs. This is the Yuletide Marketplace, the first two photos. There are kids enjoying the train set we had here 2 years ago. We also had it 2 Saturdays ago. And there I am with a patron. The 1830 Brick Schoolhouse, the CPA Historic Preservation Project. The project includes the installation of highly efficient heat pumps and HVAC for the first and second floor of the building, and other weatherization measures as identified by an energy audit. The CPA grant, District 5 Schoolhouse, assessment of accessibility by the Institute for Human-Centered Design. Mountain View Cemetery, National Historic Register plaque. We received that plaque. There I am giving it to Angela Snell. They had it mounted on the front, in the front of the Mountain View Cemetery. Attaining National Historic Register status. Purchase of District 5 Schoolhouse plaque. There we are with the new schoolhouse plaque. We put it in the front of the building. 1830s Brick School, National Register of Historic Places. Shrewsbury History Programs by members. John Campbell, Bill Davis, Linda Davis, Kristine Gustafson, Chris Kirk, Erik Larson. All those members all gave out programs here. Also, Paula Lupton, Dale McGee, Michael Perna, Donald Pottle, and a special thanks to Paul Gustafson for videotaping programs. Many thanks also to members who volunteered for school tours and cemetery groups. Guest speakers from historic institutions: Old Sturbridge Village, Tom Kelleher, Christy Higginbottom, James Nylander, Paul Revere House, Boston Public Library, American Antiquarian Society, Antiques Roadshow, Historic Deerfield, University of Connecticut, Strawberry Bank, and many notable authors. Cultural Council programs. Excursions and outings. The Willard Clock Museum, the Samuel Slater Experience, the Worcester Historical Museum, and the Artemis Ward Barn. During COVID, safety continued. Executive board meetings monthly, society newsletters, monthly programs virtual, improvements at 1830, the care of the District 5 schoolhouse.
This is significant because according to the records, the only time there was a suspension in meetings in the first 75 years was during the years of 1930 and 1931. They did not have, for obvious reasons, programs at that time. But we felt it was very important that during COVID that we continued to maintain the society and maintain our good work and maintain our connections as a group too with one another.
Additions to collections: the Harlow family, the Cook family, the Maynard family, the Cormier family.
These are all really significant contributions because they're specific to Shrewsbury. Where else can you get the things that are custom to your town except for the generosity of those who choose to have them become part of the society's collection? So we are very grateful for all of the important contributions that we've received in recent times.
Significant developments: long-term lease of the 1830 brick school, establishment of the Town History Museum, purchase of the District 5 schoolhouse. Donations to the 1830: the large millstone in front of the building, the school sign in front, donations to the number 5 schoolhouse, and also the railings and the 2 hitching posts in front of the building. Scholarships: Shrewsbury Historical Society Stephen Porter Scholarship and the Shrewsbury Historical Society Jean MacDonald Graham Scholarships. Here I am presenting a few. Shrewsbury History Award. Each year, as part of the outreach to the community, the Shrewsbury Historical Society presents 2 special awards. The Shrewsbury History Award is given to a person or organization that shows a record of outstanding leadership, service, and interest in the history of the town. Shrewsbury History Award.
We thought it was very important to recognize the service of first responders, and they were some of our most recent honorees. And Eric's presenting to the Shrewsbury Police Department and the Shrewsbury Fire Department. And they were very grateful for that recognition during very difficult times.
Shrewsbury Historical Society Restoration and Preservation Award. The Society also honors an individual or organization that completes a restoration that is an enduring example of Shrewsbury's historic architecture.
Special thanks to 2 recipients who are in the audience tonight.
Museum Store. Original website. Current website: shrewsburyhistoricalsociety.org. And the Executive Board. Online exhibits.
These are all screenshots from the website, which is curated and established and maintained by David Prince. And you can see that there's a wide range of in-depth areas to explore, to learn more. So this is really, again, part of the mission statement, to keep alive the interest in the events of our town, the people of our town, and what's happened here, and an eye to the future. So each one of these links, you can get into further information, and they're very in-depth resources here that you can explore about Shrewsbury history with exhibits, each one well-researched, well-documented, and our website gets a lot of use and is a very helpful application in the schools and even beyond. David keeps track of how many people visit our website and where they're from and what they're visiting, and it's a wonderful resource in a way, technologically, that we can keep in touch with people too.
Community outreach to schools, groups, and celebrations. That was our 2002 celebration when we were in the society. Spirit of Shrewsbury, open house at the District 5 schoolhouse, school tours. District 5 schoolhouse. Yuletide Market, all aboard Encore. Model train display and penny candy sale.
Last year, we had close to 100 people attending during the Yuletide Market event. This year, we had close to 100 people attending during the Yuletide Market, and they were all absolutely delighted to be here.
A walk through history at Mountain View Cemetery. Shrewsbury History Week on Shrewsbury Media Connection and online. 15 years of service. Thank you very much.
And that's sponsored every year during the time period just up to the Spirit of Shrewsbury event at the end of September. So you can access these programs on your cable TV channel, but you can also access many of those through the Shrewsbury Media Connection website and watch them at your leisure too. It's a wonderful resource, and many of those programs have many people watching from all over.
Thank you for helping us celebrate 125 years of the Shrewsbury Historical Society.
Enjoy some cake.
Yep.
And special thanks to every single volunteer who's been part of the society these past 125